Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of my hypothetical Winx Club reboot. Thank you so much for joining me here once again, and if you're new to the party, welcome! The time has finally come for us to take a look at probably the most requested character of all, Roxy. I hope you're all as excited as I am. So where we last left off, the Winx and the Specialists had journeyed through an ancient portal at the bottom of the world on a mission to follow the tricks to Earth. While there, they have encountered a group of wizards who have devoted their lives to keeping the Earth free from falling ill with the blight that is magic. Oh yes, they are truly making such a brave sacrifice in allowing themselves to be the only ones suffering in such a way. From the start, Bloom doesn't trust them. For her whole life, she was a magical being. She just didn't know it. What would they have done if they found out before she did? She does manage to play nice with them in an effort to stop whatever it is the tricks are up to. The wizards believe they are looking for the legendary White Circle, an artifact that serves as the key to unlocking the prison of the most vile, dangerous, magical being Magix has ever seen. If the Winx could help them in finding the circle first, they could protect it from those evil witches. Why don't the wizards have it if they're supposed to be protecting it? Well, you see, it was stolen, of course, by a stupid fairy who didn't want to give up her magic. She kept it hostage so the wizards would leave her alone, blackmailing them. Yeah, definitely, that's the story. While Bloom is at her mom's flower shop ranting about these new guys she has to work with, they're interrupted by a customer. In walks a girl holding a very cute puppy, just here to place a delivery order for her dad's business. Bloom recognizes the girl. She grew up just down the street from them. Just a year below her in school, she'd be 17, a senior now. Bloom had been homeschooled her senior year of high school, studying and taking tests from her dorm at Althea. How different their lives were, she thought. There was one other thing about this girl. The last time Bloom had seen her, she wasn't a girl. Surprise! It's Roxy. Do you like the name? She picked it out with her dad a few months ago. He's very excited to have a daughter, which is wonderful. Only she wishes her mom was able to meet her as her true self too. She picks up a small bouquet of flowers to buy separate from her dad's order. Before she leaves, Bloom compliments her necklace, a small ring of white gold on a thin chain. Roxy thanks her, says it was her mom's, so she's scared of losing it by wearing it normally. She mentions she hasn't seen Bloom in a while and asks if she'd like to come to her dad's restaurant to catch up on the house. Despite more pressing matters at hand, Bloom happily agrees, just as Vanessa would expect of her excitable child. And the little puppy in her arms? She's pretty sure it's a husky, maybe even a wolf dog. Poor thing just came up to her one morning a few weeks ago, looking for some food and a safe place to sleep. Of course she took him in. And without a collar or anyone who seemed to be looking for him, she and her dad figured he was abandoned. They decide to name him King Arthur, after the legend. But already the baby talk has led to him mostly being called R2 as a nickname. I love this detail because my cat's name is Merlin, and of course he has his silly nicknames too. For example, he is quite the large cat, so most of the time we call him Big Merle. Roxy is a recently out trans girl, living with her dad, Klaus, and her new dog, R2. She has a deep love for animals, especially ones other people find far too big and scary. She dreams of someday being a wildlife veterinarian, or maybe even working at a zoo with more exotic kinds of beasts. She's an incredibly compassionate soul. Her favorite color's red, she only drinks iced coffee, and ever since she encountered her old friend Bloom the other day, her life has been changed forever. For Roxy's design, I didn't want to change her completely. I wanted to keep most of her colors the same, but see how I could play with them. I made her hair a little bit of a darker pink though, so that it would be more distinct from the color of Tekna's. I made it so that the pink is in fact hair dye. I debated doing it the other way around and having her roots be bright pink, like a shadow root or whatever it's called, but I wanted the majority of her hair to be similar to her original design, so that like the bulk of it is analogous. So Her natural hair is a bright blonde like her dad's, and you can see it peeking through at her roots and her undercut. I think it makes more sense this way because she's human, and humans are far more likely to be naturally blonde than naturally pink-haired. In the same vein, when I was coloring her eyes, I decided that rather than being straight up purple, they would be a shade of blue that just barely leans into violet territory. And like, this is a real eye color. For example, Elizabeth Taylor. I think the undercut needed to be a different color than the rest of her hair because in my style, it otherwise wouldn't have read clearly enough for me. So that's where I decided to incorporate the other color because, as you know, Roxy's hair is two-toned. Even though I really like how Roxy's hair ended up in this design, it's not actually how I originally planned it to be. I wanted to give her a haircut that had an extreme side part for sure, since I noticed it seems to be pretty popular as a style for trans women who are growing their hair out for the first time. Or it seems that way, at least from my experience. I also really wanted to give her that undercut as a reference to Gwen from the Spider-Verse movies, who is pretty heavily implied to be a trans girl, and I think Roxy would love Ghost Spider and give herself an undercut as a reference to her. But she did it once her roots were already a bit grown out, meaning the undercut is blonde. Overall though, she ended up with a bit more of a shag mullet or shullet, but I think it works because I know personally that this haircut is popular amongst queer people too. After grabbing lunch with Bloom and catching up, Roxy happily went home to start her evening, only to begin feeling a strange sensation on her back. It began as a tingle on her shoulder blades, until soon her skin was hot to the touch. She'd begun hormone therapy a few months ago and hadn't had hot flashes in weeks. Could something be wrong? R2 came over and put his head on her lap to soothe her, and the feeling began to subside, giving her loyal companion a pat on the head. Roxy got up and went over to the mirror to see if she had any marks. Maybe she'd been scratched? But when she looked at her reflection, she fell to the ground in shock at the sight of the two glittering wings that had sprouted from her back. No, 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 she whispered to herself, trembling fingers reaching up to touch the new body parts. As she grazed the edge of one of the wings, she gasped at how solid it felt against her skin. She felt it on her fingertips, but also, perplexingly, she could feel her fingertips against the membrane of the wing. Gently, she tugged at them. It was like tugging on an arm. The shock was beginning to wear off, and Roxy could feel a creeping dread growing in her stomach. This was just too much. Just then, her phone rang, snapping her out of the spiral she was certainly headed for. It was Bloom. Roxy answered, still flustered as she listened to the voice on the other end, inviting her to a get-together at the Peters house that night. She tried to get out some kind of response, but nothing came. "Are you okay?" she heard through the phone. Looking over to R2, she suddenly remembered the obsession with fairy tales and magic creatures Bloom had always had, and before she could think, she blurted out asking her to come over. And upon Bloom's arrival, she was pulled into the house and just as shocked as Roxy was at the sight of her new wings. But instead of falling to the ground, she was practically jumping up and down with excitement. After a moment, she calmed Roxy down and walked her through concealing her wings. It wasn't until after they were fully suppressed that Roxy questioned why Bloom knew exactly what to do in this situation, and Bloom was more than happy to show her her own fairy form. Later that day, Roxy shows up to the party Bloom was throwing at her parents' place to find not only one other fairy, but 6. They welcome her in with a group hug and congratulate her, but Roxy is even more dazed than she realizes. It's a lot to process. They are incredibly excited at the idea of an earth fairy and can't help but reminisce on the joy and excitement of their own first time with their wings. Each girl proceeds to express their excitement while Roxy struggles to process the situation. Bloom is thrilled to have another fairy in her hometown. Stella offers to help her design her magic Winx form. Flora admires the beautiful color of her wings. Techna can't help but ponder the possible remedies ramifications of this discovery, Musa offers to show her how to fly, and Aisha can't wait to find out what she'll be the fairy of. But Roxy is still reeling. She can't bring herself to share in the excitement. All she can think about is how severely this derails the life that she just felt like she was starting to truly live. Would she have to drop out of school like Bloom? Move away from her dad and her new puppy? Needing to cross dimensions just to visit her mother's grave? She just wanted to be a girl. She didn't want all of this. She didn't want a destiny, but now she's got one. As much as she'll try to deny this life, she just keeps getting dragged deeper and deeper. She meets the specialists and Naboo and hangs out for the night, learning about magics and Althea and trying to have a good time. After a while, she admits that this has all been too much for her, finally saying it out loud. And as much as she appreciates them trying to include her, she just wants to be a normal girl. So she asks Bloom to take the magic back, but Bloom insists she didn't give it to her. It's only been a few months since Roxy had accepted her identity as a young woman. The magic within her would have already begun making its way to the surface. However, just as Darkar had been awoken by the Mother Dragon's flame, so too had the magic within Roxy. Bloom's presence near her, the Charmix boost she'd been given, the use of the dragon flame on Earth, it had all jump-started the process like a bolt of lightning on a AA battery and practically forced the wings out of her. But even still, the magic would have come out eventually. She's a fairy, whether she wants to be or not. And, well, she does not. Roxy's first outfit is pretty different from the one in the show, but somehow I feel like the vibes aren't that different. A simple midi-length dress over a cold shoulder top, ankle boots, and a flannel that is far too big for her. This outfit is trying to be laid back and sort of effortlessly stylish, pairing the elegant silhouette of the dress with the frumpier overshirt and chunky boots. I like her color palette being teals, pinks, and violets, but I'm not sure if this outfit maybe needs a bit more violet. I only have it in her socks and crystal pendant, and it's that same bluish shade as in her eyes, almost periwinkle. So I wonder if maybe I should try to add in more somehow, maybe in the shoes? I don't know. I could maybe do the boots or her flannel. I did debate adding a plaid pattern on her flannel, but I felt like it would be a bit much considering she wears it so slouchy, so there's already quite a bit of texture to the fabric. I also think it's good that the shoes match the shirt, but that would probably be the best place for the color change if I did it. I don't know, let me know what you guys think. You can see down by said boots that only one of her socks is pulled up and the other is scrunched down. That's because Roxy has a little stick and poke of a paw print on her leg. She thinks it's so cool, but her dad doesn't know about it, so when she's at home, she pulls up the sock to cover it. Oh, also, she's wearing the white circle on her necklace. I had to be sure to include that in her casual outfit, since the second one I'm drawing today is going to be what she wears to work at the Fruity Music Bar, and I don't think she would want to wear it to work. Roxy is a descendant of the same group of magical people as the Wizards of the Black Circle are. After the destruction and slaughter wrought by Valtor and the witches who raised him, many people began to turn against magic itself. If there was no magic, Valtor would have never reached a level of power that allowed him to cause such bloodshed in the name of growing ever stronger. Imagine the Equalists from Korra, but regarding magic rather than bending. However, among these people, there were many fairies and witches who chose to never use their powers again after everything they'd seen done with magic. This group sought out a sister world to their own, one similar in every way but one: no magic. And eventually they found Earth. They built the first portals to this new world, their final reliance on magic and spells. And when it was time, their leader gathered her community and led them through the same portal the Winx had flown through, a massive ring of blackened metal, through which they viewed their salvation as lying just on the other side. When it was decided that Valtor's prisons should be moved to Earth as well, the key to his living tomb was given to the woman who had once led this group, which had quickly dispersed across their new home. After being given the White Circle key, she went into hiding, leaving her personal guard as the authority over Earth's refugees of magic. The key stayed in the family for generations, until finally it had been passed down to Roxy after her mother's death. The wizards had not known it was in her possession when they killed her for the crime of revealing her wings. Roxy doesn't know all of the details of her mother's death. She was very young at the time, and her father hasn't had the heart to tell her what he knows. He knew his wife was a fairy. He knew she had to hide her magic for their safety, but that it came at a great cost to her happiness. And when she had her baby, she seemed to long for magical freedom stronger than ever before. Roxy's mother was excited for her to grow up. She couldn't wait to pass on the stories she'd been told, and if she was around today to see her daughter's wings emerge for the first time, there would certainly be tears of joy. Despite being a descendant of those who wished to relinquish their magic, Roxy's mother loved being a fairy. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to find out what her fairy title would have been, so she wouldn't have been able to reach her full potential with her magic. Likely, she would have been an embodiment fairy like Roxy, and probably in a similar field, but we can never know because her life was cut tragically short. I think Roxy's story is very poetic, coming from a line of people traumatized by Valtor, giving up their magic, but also being the daughter of a woman who loved her fairiness and was then killed for that because that original trauma had been twisted over time into something maniacal. Then she herself first outright rejects that same magic, only for it to be the thing that eventually allows her to avenge her mother's murder. And the poetry continues as Roxy and Bloom develop their sisterly relationship. Bloom owes her life to her older sister. She saved her from Valtor's wrath by transporting her to Earth, where Roxy's mother was pregnant with her baby, just down the road from where Mike would discover and adopt his own daughter. Then Bloom adopts Stella as her modern-day older sister, bringing her into her home and integrating her into her family. Mike and Vanessa truly consider her like their second daughter by this point. And finally, now Bloom herself is the older sister figure to Roxy, doing her best to lead her the same way Stella did when she first discovered her powers. I really want Roxy's inclusion to truly feel like the moment puzzle pieces begin falling into place in the story. She develops unique relationships with others in our group, but where she really finds connection is with Flora and Helia, who instinctively take her under their wings just as quickly as they fell for each other. Despite only being 2 years older than her, Flora and Helia take on a parental relationship with Roxy. Both of them are older than their years, and in a time like this, Roxy looks towards them for the kind of calm, mature guidance that she maybe doesn't find in Bloom. She tragically missed out on the opportunity to learn about this world from her mother, and though he does his best, her father just can't help her navigate this world like they can. There's also, of course, the fact that Helia is also transgender. He can relate to her in a way that not many others in her life can, and his friendship plays a big part in helping her to loosen up and be more accepting of her newly discovered magical identity. Helia will be the one to find and defend her when the wizards make their first attack against her as well. While all of this is happening, Roxy is in fact still occasionally working at her dad's restaurant. I find it very hard to believe that Klaus would be having his teenage daughter serving smoothies in the uniform she wears in the show, so I wanted to draw her in a work outfit that's practical but also cute and shows her personality. Something that someone would wear at like a more casual eatery, hangout spot kind of thing. She's got her plain t-shirt in the restaurant's signature color, but she ties the front, cuffs the sleeves, and wears some pins alongside her name tag to customize the look a bit. I also gave her boots with a lower heel, so she can walk around in them while serving all night. She's wearing capris with them as a reference to her original outfit, and I'm also just a fan of cropped pants and tall boots. I wear that a lot. Since this is a work outfit, I really wanted to add to it to make it interesting, since it would be pretty easy for work clothes to just be plain. Of course, I added some accessories like patches and bracelets and belt chains, but my favorite thing I did for this look was the coloring of the boots. They just look so cool, and I think they would give the perfect little alternative touch to her look, while still being whimsical. Like I mentioned before, I don't think she would want to wear her mom's ring to work. The place can get really busy sometimes, and I don't think she would want to risk something happening to it. Also, her little tat is covered up. This is a very simple look, something she just wears when when she's working at the restaurant, but I think it expresses the kind of alternative style that I want for her pretty well. It's time to talk about Roxy's fairy form. Let's go! And of course, if you're enjoying the rewrite, don't forget to like the video and leave a comment if you're feeling crazy. Let me know, what animal would you want as a fairy pet? I think I would want a bear, or maybe a raccoon. That would be cool. Once the wizards find out about her being a fairy, Roxy becomes a target. When they find out about the ring she wears on her necklace, she becomes target number 1. And after their first try at taking her out, she finally agrees to try doing some fairy training. During this fairy training, the girls work on figuring out what her magic is connected to, and eventually they seem to figure it out. Roxy is the fairy of beasts. When she finally figures out the whole transformation thing, she is surprised at how good it feels to let her wings out. After a while, she starts to feel more confident about using her magic and begins to practice in her bedroom as well, often talking to R2 as she works through things, only to find she can actually communicate with him. Roxy will be pivotal in the fight against the wizards.
Yes! I believe in fairies, and I hope they wipe those smirks off your ugly faces!
She didn't mean to get swept up into the fighting, but she did, and in the moment they saw her wings, Dumont recognized her as the child of the woman he killed. Seeing her shock, he and the other wizards taunt her with her mother's death and declare she should prepare to meet the same fate as another traitor to their people. The heirloom ring that has been passed down for generations was meant to be a last resort by the original leader of the group that left Magix, in case they found themselves in another war that threatened their entire world. It's an incredibly powerful artifact. That's why it's able to open the door to Valtor's prison. Several powerful fairies and witches gave up their powers entirely and infused them into this ring, leading to it becoming an incredibly powerful magical boost for whoever wields it. Roxy may not have a true Charmix, but somehow still has the best one of all. In the final fight, the ring will give her a temporary enchantix. Since the magic within came from a group of fully realized fairies, the power is so intense that it affects her fairy form. Once again, this form is temporary, and after the fight, Roxy will go back to her magic Winx form, but it will be the audience's first look at what's in store for the Winx Club themselves. I will also not be drawing it in this video, but I definitely will do it at some point, I promise. Like, how could I not? Roxy will not be going back to Magix with her new friends at the end of season 2 of this hypothetical reboot. She'll be staying on Earth and finishing her education like a normal teenage girl the way she's always wanted, now safe from any secret societies of magic-hating dorks that would have given her trouble. She can stretch her wings every now and then, hang out with R2, who's getting really big by the way, what? And work her summer job at her dad's restaurant. Maybe after that, Althea will be in the list of colleges she considers, but who knows? Well, I mean, I know. And we do see Roxy again in season 3. After some time passes, she will decide to attend Althea and work towards getting her enchantix for real, in honor of her mom. She'll have more of a role in the story though, as the Fairy of Beasts. In season 3, coming soon, we're gonna really be diving deep into the lore and history of Magix. We are going to learn more about the mother dragon and her species, and at some point even meet another of her kind. In the sacred garden lies the egg that she laid all those centuries ago, and the time will finally come that it begins to stir, just so happening to line up with Roxy's move to Althea. She will be the one to watch over this creature as it prepares to enter the world, while the Winx focus on the upcoming battle with Valtor. She will be there in the garden as the baby dragon emerges, using her powers to help understand and nurture it in its first days of life. Roxy and the baby dragon will form a strong connection, and she and R2, who has grown to his full size by this point and is in fact a straight up wolf, will relocate to Linfea, where she ends up staying and raising the celestial creature with Flora and Helia. As this new creature enters the world, alongside it comes an entirely new form of magic as well, flowing into the planet and ingraining into its very core. But that will be saved for a future installment. Just imagine, one day Roxy will be a fully realized enchantix fairy, living in the birthplace of life on the planet her mother dreamed of seeing for herself. itself and raising the offspring of the sources of magic itself, rolling up to every function with a fully grown wolf and a freaking dragon. Nobody will ever be messing with her or her family again. I really like the design I ended up with for her fairy form. I love that it's weird. There's all of these pieces overlapping and crossing over each other, and all the different elements somehow came together cohesively. I think that after all of the lamenting she did over this development in her life, the fact that she designs and manifests a fairy form with so many interesting aspects really shows that she's accepting being a fairy, and even eventually going to enjoy it. I was worried going into this drawing that I wouldn't make Roxy look unique enough. She's got similarities with some of the other Winx, like Tekna's hair color, Aisha's color outfit, and Bloom's body type, to name a few. Then I ended up giving her a half skirt over shorts like Musa has, so I was really nervous she wouldn't look unique enough. But in the end, I'm really happy with her. I love the idea that she finds out she can change her hair in her fairy form, and she just fully goes nuts with it, leading to a look that is a lot closer to what OG Roxy has. She wants long hair, she just hasn't been growing it out for enough time, so she makes it longer in her fairy form. And she makes it fully pink, color that'll never fade in the shower. My thinking is she would then feel like something's missing and bring back the blonde in the front pieces. I think her dad seeing her in her fairy form would be very emotional for the both of them. Her colors are all more vibrant, she's glowing with the confidence he's always hoped to see from her. And according to Klaus, her wings look just like her mother's. I have been waiting to do this video. I can't believe it's finally here. Like I said before, it feels like the pieces of this puzzle are starting to finally fall into place, and I'm so excited to tell you guys everything I have planned. I remember when Roxy was first introduced to Winx, I'd sort of just fallen off from the show at that point, and I think I was like 12 or 13, but I was shocked when I realized she wasn't being integrated into the show like they did with Aisha. I thought that was the entire point of introducing her. She's a great character that seems to have fallen victim to the horrific seasonal rot of this franchise, but I had so much fun adding her into my rewrite. I think she provides unique insight on these worlds and is super valuable to the story, and I can't wait to draw her in Chantix. Thank you all so much for coming on this journey with me. I hope you enjoyed finally seeing our girl enter the catalog of redesigns, and until the next one, bye!